Hello and welcome to the Symposium, and yes, I, a grown man, am going to talk about a children's cartoon show made by Nickelodeon, which is not something I thought I'd ever have to do, but I feel kind of compelled in the case of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it's genuinely brilliant. I can't get over just how compelling this series is from a very multivariate sort of perspectives, just all over the place, in so many different ways, in so many different axes, and to such great depth. All of the characters and storylines and world building in Avatar: The Last Airbender are really first rate and really help get you invested in what's going on. And frankly, there's never a dull moment during the whole thing. I've recently introduced my son to it because I'm actually really impressed with the moral lessons that can be drawn from it as well. In addition to the fact that it's awesome, the fighting is all the fight scenes are great in this. So naturally he enjoys it, and there's really a lot to be learned. So the premise of the world is that there are magical people in the world who can control elements magically. They call this bending, and you get people each individual who can do it can do one kind of element, except for the chap with the arrow on his head there called the Avatar, who can do it with all elements, and he is in fact, in proper style, meant to bring a balance to the elements or something. This essentially is to save the world from the Fire Nation. Now, the Fire Nation, as you can see by the red guy there, that's Prince Zuko, the Crown Prince of the Fire Nation, and he is a very angry man. And it's his story with his sister, who's one of the primary antagonists for the main group, that is really worth focusing on, because the dynamics of the two are so interesting. So, Prince Zuko is a young man with a big scar on his face, and he got this scar on his face because his father, as an act of incredibly stern disciplinarianism, gave him this massive scar for disrespecting a general or himself during a war meeting. Like I said, he's the Crown Prince. Now, his father has inherited a war that has been going on for about a century, I think, and it was started by the Fire Nation. They are the protagonists in this war. They're the people who initiated the war. And Fire Lord Ozai, his father, who is this chap here, is a very cruel and calculating man. He's very callous. He is efficiency above all, it seems. And so Zuko, having failed to maintain his honor in the court and in the war meeting, after being scarred, has been tasked with finding the Avatar, who has gone missing for 100 years, but has apparently returned to the world, capturing him and bringing him back or killing him if possible. And so Zuko is a really angry young man. He's been really quite hard done by, even though he lives a life of pampered luxury. The requirements that are placed upon him are incredibly high. So he's had a martial upbringing, he's been trained in various fighting styles, he has clearly suffered, and he's suffered a social humiliation as well. And this is important when it ties into the character of his sister, that we'll talk about in a moment. But he is then, as a 14-year-old kid, and we pick up the story when he's 16, he spends the 2 years traveling the world with his uncle, who is the Fire Lord's brother, who is a really nice guy. He's a failed military leader himself in his youth, and so has been disgraced for being unable to capture the capital city of a foreign kingdom. But he's a very wise and temperate man, and so he goes with Zuko to travel the world and try and help him restore his honor. But Iroh's moral compass is very different to Ozai's. Iroh is a very compassionate man. He's very individual-centered. He's very concerned about what the inner turmoil of a person is, the source of their unhappiness. Whereas Ozai is incredibly stern and incredibly unyielding in his perspectives. They are genuinely like night and day. And so Zuko is trying to get Ozai's approval. That's his mission. He wants to restore his honor by capturing or killing the Avatar so he can return to the court, resume his rightful place as the heir apparent, and then, be in his father's good books. Very, very, very firm plots for Zuko. And one of the major problems that Zuko has is his sister Azula. Now, Azula is 2 years younger than Zuko, however, she is brilliant. Zuko is actually kind of dumb. And that's one of the charming things about him. Azula, by comparison, is absolutely brilliant. And we are treated to many flashback sequences from their youth throughout the duration of the 3 series to explain to you why they are like this. Zuko is not, as I said, he's not a particularly intelligent guy, but he is persistent. And throughout the entire breadth of the story, and I'm only counting the series, I don't care what happens outside of the series. I'm not interested. I've looked into a bit of it and I didn't like it, so I don't care about it. It's not canon as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, in the series, Zuko rarely meets with any kind of long-lasting success. He is in fact repeatedly beaten up or knocked unconscious or captured or whatever it is. He's rarely winning the fights he's getting into. Not because he doesn't have skill as a martial artist, which he does. It's just that he's not very well disciplined. And again, he's just not that bright. Azula, by comparison, is, again, the opposite of Zuko in many ways. She is a prodigy, as described in the series, and is essentially, imagine if Emma Watson's character from Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, imagine if she was evil, then you would have Azula. You would have the girly swot who holds the highest standards and likes to be vindictive, likes to provoke and hurt people, and essentially control them using whatever kind of social manipulation that she can, assuming she doesn't go any further than that and just use outright political manipulation or just force. Because another thing about Azula is she is not just intellectually brilliant, which she is, she's cunning and devious and Machiavellian to the extreme, but she is also the sort of person who holds herself to the highest standards, because she is trying to win the approval of her father, and she is the one that has it over Zuko. So she is defending her position in her father's eyes from Zuko's attempt, in her view, I suppose, to usurp that. And so she uses psychological means to manipulate Zuko and make him doubt himself, make him feel like his father's always going to turn on him, make him feel like he is never good enough, and do anything that she can to undermine him. This can be physical and as well as intellectual, because she is, like I said, a much better fighter than Zuko is. This is what Zuko has to deal with, his brilliant, prodigal younger sister constantly undermining him to make sure that the father, who is an awful person, prefers her rather than him. Because that's the only thing that Azula seems to value, is power. And you can see why, again, throughout the course of the series. She's very, very conscious of her class, as you can imagine. She knows that she's royalty. In fact, one of the parts during the conquest of a foreign kingdom is the Earth Kingdom. The conquest of a sect of secret agents who control the Earth Kingdom. She ends up taking control of them on the strength of her ancestry, that she was born a princess, over the competition for loyalty with the members of the Dai Li, the soldiers, the elite agents, over a man who had raised himself up from being like a street rat to that position. And she uses her confidence in her birth to win this over. And she's always calling people peasants as well. She's very, very, very aristocratic. And she knows it. She knows she's at the very pinnacle of society. And she'll use these kind of social wiles, not only against the inferiors of hers, but also against Zuko. And so in every relationship she has, she is the one who is not only smart enough, but she's also powerful enough to maintain the upper hand in any dynamics that occur. She's always the one in control, and Zuko is always left on the back foot because he's just not smart enough. I mean, at one point we're treated to Zuko having an encounter with Azula, and then after she's fucked with him, walking away and saying, I think he says in his bedroom actually, he's going, Azula always lies, Azula always lies, Azula always lies. She's manipulated him ever since they were very young children. And so Zuko goes off with Uncle Iroh, and he doesn't know how to handle what's going on. And I'm going to skip over huge amounts of detail here, because it's just not the time and place to do it. But eventually, Zuko starts becoming aware that the people in the real world, the outside world, they're not evil. And in fact, in many ways, they have superior moral systems to the one that he was raised with, the one that Azula embodies and the one that his father embodies, a very duty and honor-bound system that is very dispassionate and inhuman, at least as practiced by those people closest to him. Whereas Uncle Iroh seems to actually be much more like the people outside of this framework. He's a lot more worldly and down-to-earth and just humanistic. And this is something that essentially causes Zuko to go into a kind of tailspin, because his whole life he's been gaslit by his sister. By the time he's out, by the time he actually encounters the Avatar, he is a very angry young man. And Iroh is doing everything he can, because he feels sympathy because of what his father did to him with scarring of his eye. He wants to help his nephew find the right course and path. And so after Azula takes out the Earth Kingdom's capital, Zuko is essentially... Iroh opposes Azula doing this, which is mildly ironic because he'd tried to conquer it previously. And Zuko's forced... Who is he going to join? Is he going to be a traitor to Iroh, who will effectively declare himself to be a traitor against the Fire Nation, his own nation, and his own brother? Or is Zuko going to be loyal to his father and his nation and join Azula? And Zuko does this. Iroh ends up getting taken to jail, and it's a really, really interesting set of events that happen, because Zuko can't stop thinking about how essentially he betrayed his uncle, lied about the Avatar being dead, but that's a bit of an inconsequential plot point, although it does tie into Azula, again, Azula's brilliance and Machiavellian brilliance. She tells Fire Lord Ozai that Zuko killed the Avatar, when in fact it was Azula who shot the Avatar with lightning, and this was a lie that she told in order to essentially trap Zuko. So he would have to either agree with it and gain the honour, but could only have the honour of having done that for as long as it was true. And if the Avatar was not actually dead, which he wasn't, then, as Azula said, that would all blow up as shame in his face, or, the honour would turn to shame and he would be in terrible, terrible... another terrible situation that he's been trying to escape. So, again, he's never on firm ground. And in trying to come to terms with all of this and trying to reconcile these things in his head, Zuko is angry at Iroh for doing the right thing. Because doing the right thing, from Zuko's perspective, if he is trying to be loyal to his father and what his father's ideals, if we will call them that, then he feels like a very, very bad person. And so he cusses him out, he calls him crazy, and he's angry with him again. Now, Zuko ends up going on a long learning journey with... I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but he goes on a series of experiences. He's humbled, he has to change himself, he grows as a person. He gets to know a lot of the people that he has otherwise been targeting. And in the end, he goes back to Iroh after Iroh has escaped from jail and goes to apologize. And it's a really weighty scene. It is such genuine, substantial, emotional weight in this scene, because Iroh's facing away from Zuko, and Zuko goes into this tent because they're in a war, and says, "Look, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I messed up. I don't know how you can ever forgive me." And Iroh just grabs him and hugs him. He's not angry with him. He wanted him to learn and grow, and now Zuko has. And so it's genuinely one of those moments. It's like, Christ, am I watching a kids show here or what? Because this is real moral development. And so, returning to Azula. Now, the way that we know that Azula is just better than everyone else, the whole series is just so beautifully done with these small details. But Azula's primary mark that marks her out as different is the fact that most of the firebenders, when they create fire, it's orange fire, as does Zuko and the Fire Lord. But Azula has blue fire, because she is just that good. And it's such a beautiful piece of texture to the world. But while Zuko's been doing all of this, Azula has been winning victory after victory. She has taken the capital of the rival kingdom. She has essentially joined her father's right-hand side, as the heir apparent, because Zuko's a traitor now and he's gone off with the Avatar. So Azula is getting everything that she wants. And then when it comes to the final invasion of the Earth Kingdom, the rival kingdom, the most powerful rival kingdom, it's important to note that the Air Kingdom has been genocided, which you get to see. You don't see the genocide, but you see the skeletons and the consequences of these genocides. But Zuko, at a war meeting while he was reconciled, while he was reconciled to his father before he goes off to meet his defector Uncle Iroh and the Avatar, Zuko essentially inadvertently gives him the idea of when a particular comet that comes along that increases their powers, they should essentially genocide the Earth Nation, which is genuinely what they're going to do. And so they set up the means to do this, and when Fire Lord Ozai says, right, it's time for this to happen because this comet has arrived, he tells Azula that she has to stay in the Fire Kingdom. Now, she thinks this is some terrible betrayal. What does she do? She is the favoured one, is she not? Should she not be at his side genociding the Earth Kingdom as well, so they can create their wonderful new, essentially Nazi world order? However, her father says, listen, I'm going to become the Emperor of the world. You are going to become the Fire Lord and rule over the Fire Nation. And this, you would think, is Azula getting everything that she wanted. She's got the respect and love and interest of her father, which Zuko could never get. She is now she's got the ego of a maniacal princess. So she's now in complete control of everything in the Fire Kingdom. She has won. Everything is, she just can't stop winning because she is too good at everything. But there is a problem that's inherent within this that ends up coming out, which is her rampant abuses of power. She starts by dismissing and banishing people, her servants. She banishes the Dai Li, she banishes old family maids or whoever they are, banishing the servants who are scrubbing her feet and things like this. She starts becoming incredibly arbitrary, the very epitome of the worst excesses of a tyrant, and it happens quite quickly to her. But this matters because by the time Zuko has got his act together, she's in an absolute state. She's isolated. She doesn't trust anyone. She thinks everyone's plotting against her. She thinks that everyone is essentially trying to usurp her power because that is what she spent her life doing to other people. And so she is completely off her rocker by the time Zuko comes back to face her. Now, this fight between Zuko and Azula is amazing. It's a really, really powerful fight. And it's not just... And it's the same kind of weight and resonance that the fight between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader has. It's not just that they are both powerful combatants battling out. It is that there is something emotional being resolved here. And it's so brilliantly portrayed. Halfway through the fight, Zuko's not doing badly. Now, normally, Azula would be whipping Zuko's ass because she is just better than him. But Zuko has been on a very difficult journey, whereas she has actually not. She's been festering and sort of being inward rather than being external and learning about the world. And so when she comes to fight Zuko in ritualized combat that he's wanted to do for a long time and she hasn't, she is at her very worst, whereas Zuko is at his very best. On Zuko's journey, he has not only had to learn and grow as a person, he has managed to resolve his own moral conflicts, which really were the source of his anger. He has learned to be able to center his power in something that isn't his anger, because his anger was originally the thing that gave him the power that he had to go and beat up the people, because he was a formidable opponent, just nothing compared to Azula. But instead now it's based in what he's learned and his own new moral compass and his own self-discipline. And so this really, really becomes apparent in the difference, because initially Zuko and Azula would have been essentially different. Zuko was the angry one who was not in control, and Azula was the calculating one who was in control. And now that dynamic has been reversed. Zuko is the one who's in charge of the fight, and it looks like he might win. Now, this is pretty inconceivable any other day, But this particular day, it looks like he's going to do it. And so what Azula does is ends up shooting his friend Katara, and he has to jump in the way, and it basically throws the fight. Katara has been referred to as a peasant derisively many times by Azula. And so when it is eventually Katara who ends up defeating Azula, that drives Azula mad. She ends up chaining her, this through magic, basically, but chains her down, and Azula realizes she's been defeated by a peasant, and she is just gone. She starts, spitting fire and writhing around, absolute insanity. That is the total loss of control for Azula, and so that's what makes this character so compelling, in my opinion. The very, very different nature. It's light and dark from the beginning of Azula's career to the end of Azula's career. And the way that Zuko's narrative arc plays out is nothing short of brilliance. It really is. It is a very Petersonian way of looking at essentially getting control of your own emotions so you can be a positive force in the world and do things that don't make you conflicted, that don't lead to genocide, that don't lead to you not liking the person that you have become, and being true to the person that you have become, even in the face of worldly temptations or social prestige or power, whatever it is. It's having the peace of mind of being a decent person is far more important than all of these other things. And so, yeah, just to sum up, this Nickelodeon cartoon was really, really great. You should go and watch it if you haven't watched it. But I really like this as a form of moral instruction for children. Like, if they're going to be instructed in how to be good people, Avatar is a brilliant representation of how that's done.